Hello, ladies and gentlemen. You are welcome to this event where we are commemorating the International Women's Day. It's supposed to come on the 8th of March every year. And because it was a Saturday, we felt that it would be better to have the event on a working day so that a lot of people can benefit. But I think also there was one mix-up that the flyer was saying International Women's Day, 8 March 2025, but the Zoom link was saying 11th March, which is today. It doesn't matter because people will see a lot of people. Normally, when there's a mix-up like this, they will go to our Facebook and before we realize it, we have overwhelming numbers of people who will be watching on YouTube and Facebook and other social media handles. So whatever contributions you are going to make, they are going to reach out to the world. My name is Dr. Violet Makuku, and I'm the director for the Global Quality Assurance Association. We are just going to give you a short video before we start. Mr. Tariro, can you please go ahead?
Welcome to Global Quality Assurance Association. At Global Quality Assurance Association, we offer capacity building and training services for companies, government ministries or departments, organizations, institutions, and individuals. We support its members to produce high-quality research projects through mentoring, guidance, and tutoring. We also offer pieces of advice and career guidance related quality assurance issues. We assist institutions, government ministries, departments, companies, organizations to prepare for accreditation. We provide support for all sectors to prepare for national, continental, and global rankings. Our services also include monitoring, assessing and evaluating institutions, government ministries, departments, organizations, companies, compliance to set standards, and maintenance of their quality management systems. We review the technical, projects, and research proposals as a way of assuring quality and success. We collect and analyze quality assurance data from different sectors, including, but not limited to, the public and private sectors, as well as service provision, extraction and manufacturing companies and industries. We offer QA consultancy services. We also provide carrying out company, organization, institutional assessments, government ministries, departments, and evaluation for self-improvement. We organize different annual quality assurance competitions for individuals, companies, organizations, government ministries, or departments and institutions. We train quality assurance professionals.
How does that work? It's a lack of understanding. That's why I'm emphasizing for governance. Even governance, they need buy-in. You know, vice chancellors come and go, registrars come and go. You don't be tired as the director of quality assurance. Make an appointment. Go and sit with them. You know, this it's critical. Global Quality Assurance Association, walking the talk.
You can visit our website, gqaa.org. Follow us on Facebook and LinkedIn at Global Quality Assurance Association. Our Twitter and Instagram handles at GlobalQualityAA. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel, Global Quality Assurance Association.
Thank you very much, Mr. You may stop sharing. Thank you all for joining us now. We are live on different social media handles, and even after you can make a follow-up. Just to augment the video in a few minutes, I want to share a few slides, and then we can now continue introducing our first speaker, going to our second speaker, and then the floor will be open. We are the Global Quality Assurance Association. That's our logo, but we believe that quality starts with you. And okay. Sorry, I realized that I had not shared my. I think it's this one. Yes. So once again, I was saying we are the Global Quality Assurance Association, and I'm just going to share a few slides before we call upon our first speaker to come on board. Those are our social media handles. Our vision is to enable organizations to attain high levels of efficiency and profitability through sustainable quality assurance systems in a bid to create a world where the quality culture thrives. Where the quality culture thrives, there are savings, huge savings, prevention of losses, and we also have, as we will see, the concept of a stitch on time saves 9, because through monitoring and evaluation, gaps are quickly identified and blocked. That is very, very important. Our mission is to ensure consistency in the quality of goods and services through knowledge and skills sharing, institutional, industry, and/or organizational assessments, monitoring, evaluations, consultancy, education and awareness, and capacity building of personnel to be knowledgeable of or as quality assurance professionals. And that is very, very key. Our values are quality. We are committed to delivering exceptional services that meet the highest standards possible. We look at sustainability. We believe in long-term partnerships that foster growth and development. Aside that, we look at initiatives that also bring about sustainability to our partners, to our members, and to ourselves. Consistency. We strive for consistency in our services, ensuring reliability and trust. I think those who have been moving with us since 2023 can also testify that when we say we have free services, we offer them. When we have paid services, we also offer them. But we try by all means, as you shall see, that those services are very good as much as possible. Professionalism, we maintain the highest level of expertise and integrity in our work. You know, people may always flow here and there, but on the whole, we are just trying. We are guided by the following SDGs. SDG 4, quality education, which we believe that anchors everything. With education, uh, anything is possible. And with education, that's where we have the functionalist perspective working, where people are sieved and sifted by the education system into different roles and different specialist areas. And so we believe that once we are guided by SDG for quality education, it means that we are striving to achieve and contribute towards the other SDGs. We look at gender equality. This is the reason why today is also one of the most important days where we are celebrating the International Women's Day, which comes on the 8th of March every year. But we are celebrating it today because we realized that it fell on a Saturday and we might not have had enough audience. Gender equality is important because it enables men and women to have equal opportunities where possible, where even the expertise and the knowledge and skills of women complement rather than are in competition with men. And so this is the message that we are pushing forward. We look at DG8, decent work and economic growth. This again, like I said earlier, it is linked to SDG for quality education. Once the higher and tertiary education receives from the kindergarten, primary, secondary, and senior high school students who are inputs into the universities, they can then bring about good training of knowledge and skills that are required by industry. Upon completion, we say we have graduates, but these graduates are our manpower for the different industries. And we are proud to say that we support a decent work and economic growth because economic growth again brings the sustainability that we talked about earlier on. We want to look at reduced inequalities, SDG 10. We take it as very, very critical and also linked to gender equality because part of the inequalities are seen by gender, where we see men sometimes overriding women because they are females. Sometimes also we want to say, let us give opportunities to the females and see if they cannot perform. But of late, we have realized that we have a lot of females who are role models, who have also contributed significantly and complemented the work that men do. SDG 17, Partnerships for Goals, is our daily song. We say, let's partner together for a better world. Our key objectives are to contribute towards building a quality culture in all sectors, strengthening the capacity of our quality products and service delivery in Africa and beyond, ensuring compliance with national, regional, and global quality assurance standards so that at least we can enable international trade, not that our goods and services are rejected on the premise that they don't meet international standards. We also want to really compete in trade, export, import with other countries in Africa and outside Africa. generating quality assurance data-driven insights to inform policy and strategic decisions. Our services have already been outlined, consultants in quality assurance and other areas like research, resource mobilization, learner-centered teaching skills, and many other. Capacity building and training, accreditation readiness support, quality assurance data analytics, industry and institutional assessments. We do them. And where we have offered these services, it has been good. And we continue to offer the same services in the same manner. I'm sorry, I think right. Like I've told you, we are really committed to our branding and our corporate colors. We offer all these support services. Right now, 25 to 27 March, we have a quality assurance symposium, and we are looking forward to receiving many of the people who are in higher and tertiary education. We also have an April event on libraries that is coming up. And we have all these short courses. I will just scroll in the interest of time. Some of them are in quality assurance, others are in different areas, but we offer them well with commitment. Mm. Okay, so these are the short courses which we offer, which I was trying to explain and show you. This is one of the events in April, another event in March. So you are welcome. You can get hold of us for more details. And then we have membership, institutional and individual. For individuals and institutional, we give you your certificate right away, and it elevates your profile, boosts your credibility, and you also enjoy huge discounts on our services and products. It helps you for application during promotion or when applying for a new job. In terms of grant writing, if we have grants, we roll you in to help us with the implementation, and you know the implications that you will also be paid. You can get the opportunity to utilize our platform as a guest speaker, keynote speaker, panelist, and so on to illuminate you to the world. I think in the interest of time, I will stop here. But once again, I think you can see the quality of events that we offer. This is the last group that we had from Ahmadu Bello University. This is the Vice Chancellor and the DVC. This also is Zambia and Namibia Council for Higher Education, Zambia Chalimbana University, and one College of Education here in Ghana. Quality starts with you. Quality starts with me. Quality is everybody's business. We want you to always remember that we all need to work together in order to make sure that we build the quality culture wherever we are, because having the quality culture, it's an advantage. It's a huge saving, and it makes everything works on very well. So these are some of the events which we have already anchored this year. So in the interest of time, allow me to stop here and introduce to you Dr. Justin Chinoperekwe. We have Dr. Justin Chinoperekwe as one of our guest speakers, and also Madam Joa Tluviche, who is between UK and Ghana. Dr. Chinoperekwe is in Zimbabwe. So let me just introduce Doc very, very quickly so that he can now take the floor. I'm sorry, just a minute for me. Thank you. So Dr. Justin Chinoperekwe is a leading organization development practitioner dedicated to empowering women in leadership. His work centers on helping women embrace and manifest their brilliance, fostering a new era of leadership and business consciousness that prioritizes human-centered practices. And he walks the talk. I can assure you, for many years I've worked with him and saw him fighting fiercely and ferociously for the rights of women and for the recognition of women. Through his expertise, he actively supports women in developing their leadership capabilities and navigating the unique challenges that they face. As the CEO of the Center for Organizational Leadership and Development, that is based in Zimbabwe, Harare, and the Organizational Leadership and Development Network. He provides platforms and resources specifically designed to advance women's leadership journeys. Furthermore, as a scholar practitioner, Dr. Chinoperekwe contributes to master's and doctoral programs, ensuring that future generations of leaders, particularly women, are equipped with the knowledge and skills necessary to thrive. I can spend the whole month or a whole year talking about Dr. Justin. In the interest of time, allow me to call upon Dr. Justin to the floor. Doc, you are most welcome. After him,
thank you.
I'm going to have an exciting case study from Madam Ajwa Pluviche, who is also our guest speaker of the day. Go ahead, Doc.
Thank you so much, Dr. Makuku, for the introduction and the amazing work that the Global Quality Assurance Association is embarking on. I enjoy the journey. I see a lot of success stories emerging out of this, and welcome to everyone on board. It's such an honor to be here today, celebrating the International Women's Day in this International Women's Month. And apologies where I am, they can't reduce a bit the volume of their radio, but I hope it will not affect us on this conversation. It's such an honor to always be in a space where we discuss gender equality. And today I'm going to be emphasizing more on the need for gender justice and gender equity as we expand the focus and the concern of the theme of this year, which is accelerated action. How do we accelerate action in terms of gender equality, gender mainstreaming, gender justice? And I've given a topic to my presentation this afternoon to say from rhetoric to results. And the reason why I have chosen this topic from rhetoric to results is because of what's happening around us, especially in this powerful month, the International Women's Month. We see a lot of organizations, a lot of individuals vocalizing their initiatives, vocalizing their engagements in empowering women or supporting women's initiative. And as I interact with a lot of women and organizations that I'm interacting with on women issues, I realize that there's a lot that needs to be done. There's a lot that where we are lagging behind, and we need to take action. And the theme around accelerated action is therefore quite fundamental at the time that we are in. So I'm going to be touching on solutioning some of these deceptive whispers and the illusion of accelerated action in gender mainstreaming or gender equity. And allow me to start by highlighting that the International Women's Day, as celebrated on the 8th of March, did ignite a vision where every woman and girl should thrive. And this is a noble cause in line with SDG number 5 of gender equality. And allow me also to indicate that we have seen significant strides around gender equality. And there are a lot of success stories in this space. But the key question is, are we doing enough? Is the data that we are showcasing really showing the value that we are creating in these initiatives? And I'm submitting to us this afternoon that we need to amplify gender justice beyond gender equality. And I will touch on that as I go on with my presentation, because with the many women that we are working with on our capacity development programs, we really see that we are creating or co-creating amazing female leadership or women in leadership programs. But when the women go back to the organizations, when the women go back to the society, that whole learning process seems to be coming to waste, because we have a lot of systemic barriers, cultural barriers, that makes the whole interventions futile. So what do we need to do to amplify gender justice and ensure that we are not just doing public relations initiatives, but we are really attending to the systemic barriers that are affecting women to amplify their brilliance and showcase their potential? So I'm submitting to us that it is very critical to unearth and confront the whispers of deceit that threaten to dilute our collective resolve. We might have this whole month talking about women issues, having dinner sessions, tea, morning sessions, but are we attending to the systemic challenges that are affecting women? Are we attending to some of the cultural barriers that are really affecting women and the equality and justice that we need around gender? So to counter these disruptive measures, I'm going also to submit some of what I call the pillars of authentic equity. What are some of the pillars that we need to amplify in our different spaces to ensure that we move forward? So my agenda to you this afternoon is threefold. Number one, what are some of the deceptive whispers that are threatening to dilute our collective resolve? We might do amazing work around gender equality, SDG 5, but what are some of those memos, deceptive whispers that are really affecting our collective resolve? What are some systemic barriers that impede our journey towards gender equality and equity? Are we attending to those systemic barriers, or we are sugarcoating affairs as if something is happening? We put a woman's face in our boards. We put a woman's face in our executive structures and then make amazing reports around gender equality. Are women really getting paid the same as men when they rise up the corporate ladder? Are we attending to those systemic barriers? From experience working with women and involved in women development, there is still a huge gap in as much as we are publicizing amazing statistics around gender equality and gender equity. How can we silence these deceptive members of deceit, or members of deceit, or whispers of deceit, while addressing these systemic barriers? So my point number one, in terms of these whispers of deceit, is that we are living in a sugar-coated facade where in most cases, our organizations and societies are masking the absence of systemic changes. We are making amazing reports, concerted efforts to craft polished, optimistic narratives of gender mainstreaming, but on the ground, something is missing. There are huge disconnects. So we need to attend to this sugar-coated facade. And in this month where we are celebrating women, a lot of organizations are putting out these well-polished, optimistic reports and narratives around gender mainstreaming. But as we go inside and look at some of the fundamentals, you realize that a lot is amiss. So we are emphasizing too much on symbolic gestures and superficial advancements in our organizations. And I say this from a practical experience immersion in organizations where there's a lot of sugar-coated gender equality figures, amazing reports. We have mastered the art of presenting these amazing reports and putting women in some strategic positions just to hold the space, while they do not have the decision-making power, while they are not rewarded as much as men holding those positions. And as such, we are masking some systemic changes, some systemic barriers in our organizations and societies. So we have deceptive appearance of progress, masking the absence of substantial systemic changes. So if we are to accelerate action, we need to relook at this narrative and start manifesting true gender mainstreaming, particularly focusing on gender equity. And allow me to indicate that there are some organizations that are doing amazing work in this space. We also have number two, a whisper of tokenistic tinge, where we are creating a veneer of gender equality. And what we see in some organizations is that they are strategically including a few women in highly visible positions or initiatives so that they create an illusion of progress. And they make a lot of noise around these few women that are in strategic positions. But if we dig into the fundamentals, you realize that these women are just holding positions. They are not making decisions. As such, they can't support other women. And we then hear a narrative where women say, once Dr. Makuku rises up the corporate ladder, she's not supporting other women to rise. And we say women don't support each other. Is it a true narrative that women don't support each other, or there are systemic barriers that now limits Dr. Makuku to support other women to rise because she has been placed on a position just to hold the space and again sugarcoat our reports? So we now deflect criticism and create a veneer of gender equality without addressing the fundamental inequalities. The superficial representation of putting a few women in strategic positions will mask the lack of genuine commitment to equitable representation and empowerment. So the call for this year to accelerate action is a call to remove these systemic barriers that hinder true gender mainstreaming beyond the corporate spaces. If you go on social media, you realize that a lot of what is happening around International Women's Day is about these women in the corporate sector. And we tend to define gender equality through women in the corporate sector. But go into indigenous communities, go into rural communities, you realize that there is a lot of work that needs to be done around this whole issue. So we are sugarcoating affairs and making presentations about these few women in political positions and in the corporate sector. The third one is add woman and steer delusion, assuming that if we incorporate women into existing structures, we automatically report gender equality. And this is a whisper, this is a deceptive meme. And we see most organizations placing women, and then they stare and say, we are achieving gender equality. But are we truly achieving gender equality? So a conversation around accelerating action needs us to go back to the fundamentals, dig deep, and start having the honest and difficult conversations that are affecting women. Most women, from my interactions, they don't want to rise beyond managerial and supervisory roles in organizations. Why? Because the environment is not conducive. We have not attended to the systemic challenges, the barriers that affect women as they rise up the corporate ladder. We are putting women in a lot of pressure around, you need to break the glass ceiling. You need to rise up the corporate ladder, gain your confidence, and all these issues without taking due care about the fundamental issues that have led women to be in those positions. So ignoring the need for transformative changes of policies, practices, and organizational culture will not lead us to accelerated action. So in a lot of conversations that are happening this month, there is no much talk around reforming our policies, re-looking our practices, re-looking the organizational culture, so that we give women the space that they so desire. There's a lot of sugarcoating of affairs, a lot of talking without really putting the transformative changes that will manifest real gender justice in our spaces. There's a failure to recognize that existing systems are designed to perpetuate gender inequalities. And this is a conversation that we are not so much confident to engage in. In my preparation for this session, I did a quick perusal around organizations that are making a lot of noise around International Women's Day. And you see that most organizations that are led by women CEOs are the ones that are at the forefront. Very few male CEOs are championing as he for she champions for gender equality and attending to the transformative changes around policies, practices, and organizational culture to manifest this gender equality. So Accelerate Action invites us to undertake the necessary, bold, yet difficult work of true systemic reform. This is not easy. This is not something that we can have nice coffee over when we really want to attend to the systemic reforms that will facilitate real gender equality and gender equity. The next one is the capacity cultivation cage, where we are building women's capacity within the confines of systemic barriers. There are a lot of women development programs happening across the globe, but we are doing this without attending to the systemic barriers. Women get amazing exposure to content that empowers them while they are sitting in the workshop. But when they go back to their workstation, they meet these systemic barriers. They can't apply what they will have learned. Their confidence is broken down the minute they walk into that organization or into that community. So we see heavy investments in women capacity development, but we are not attending to the barriers. We have structured that perpetuate gender inequality. I know of organizations where we are training women, and the leaders there who are men will tell you, oh, this is a women's thing, let them go and they will come back. And when they come back, they get into the same system, which is perpetuating these issues. So capacity development becomes a deceptive distraction, where organizations want to report that they're doing something for women, but they are not attending again to the systemic issues that need to be worked on. So preventing the necessary dismantling of the cage that keeps women from fully recognizing their potential. So most women, they are no longer excited to go on these women development programs because it's a cage. It's a deceptive distraction where fundamental issues are not attended to. So we need to look at that. The beacon breakthrough, and I'm using here the first female referee in the African context. And there was a lot of noise around that. People celebrated her, which is a huge accomplishment. But how many women have we seen rising to that position? Have we really worked on our structures on the African continent to ensure that we see more women rising to that position? We only celebrated her and made a lot of noise about her and said we are breaking the gender stereotypes, but are we really breaking those? So this singular achievement binds us to the persistent systemic barriers. We create an illusion that the path has been cleared because there is this one woman or two women who have risen to a certain position. And we make a lot of noise about that. And the noise will soon die down and then things go back to normal. So how many women have we seen in our different African states rising to being referees at international or regional levels? We've made a lot of noise because one woman had achieved, and we had said she had cleared the path. But is the path clear? If we talk of women in this context, you realize that there are a lot of barriers that are still hindering women to achieve. But when we get to the African Cup of Nations or regional tournaments, we place a woman there and we make a lot of noise and we create an illusion that the path has been created, when in actual fact, there are a lot of systemic barriers that need to be attended to. So we need broad perspectives when amplifying the brilliance of such beacons. Then we have the equality versus equity evasion. If you listen to a lot of conversations that will be happening this month, there's a lot of talk around equality. But what we need more, what women need more, is the equity. Are they getting paid the same as men, in as much as we are creating positions in our organizations and in our communities? Are they getting benefits as same as men, as we promote women in our different spaces? So we are focusing so much on formal equality while neglecting the need for equity. And as such, we perpetuate existing inequalities, ignoring systemic barriers that women face. And we have rising cases of sexual harassment in workplaces, in societies. And where is this all coming from? Our exclusive focus on equality versus equity. And our conversations should be broadened beyond that. And we also focus more on the performative pronoun of inclusion. Most of our organizations, when they're writing their reports and societies, they are so much into diversity, equity, and belongingness. And we hide behind this inclusion pronoun. Again, creating a false sense of progress. And this theme of accelerating action invites us to take bold structural changes and ensure that the inclusivity that we write in our reports, the inclusivity that we talk about in most instances, is real. And we see that transformative value being created. There's a backlash blind spot where we fail to anticipate and address the inevitable backlash that occurs when gender equality initiatives challenge existing power. I don't know about other nations, but in my nation, it's not easy for someone to say we need to have a woman president in public. It becomes a huge backlash. I don't know in your organizations, if you have male CEOs, how easy it is to talk about a conversation to say, we need a female CEO in this particular context. In most cases, that's not possible. In our communities, because of our cultural norms, it's not easy to talk about women taking certain roles and be accepted. There are huge backlash. And are we attending to those issues? Because it leads to the erosion of progress and silencing of dissenting voices. People don't talk. They just have to go with the existing narrative, But is it a taboo? Is it wrong for us to vocalize and say we need a women president in Zimbabwe and write it in the front page of the newspaper? But it's not easy to do that. It's a very challenging issue to do, which calls us, when we say accelerate action and we make noise around gender equality and gender equity, to really look at those structural issues. And we also have the cultural collision cause, which leads to non-compliance and passive non-compliance. In our cultures, in our societies, there are certain things that we have not yet accepted. And when we talk about this whole subject of gender equality, that's why it's a very good conversation to talk in hotels, five-star hotels, where we, as a collective, a cult of professionals, we can easily talk about it. Can we go into the communities, into the indigenous communities, and talk about gender equality and be understood? How many of us have organizations that are going into those rural communities and opening up the space for this conversation? There's a lot of cultural collision, and this collision leads to resistance, backlash, and in most cases, passive non-compliance. So communities will say, go ahead into your five-star hotels, talk about women and the empowerment of women. But when we come back to reality, nothing is going to work. There is cultural collision. So we need to look at the interplay between gender equality and our diverse cultural context. Then the seasonal spotlight syndrome. I'm happy as Global Quality Assurance Association was presenting, they have SDG 5 is their guiding pillar. In most cases, organizations have celebrated the International Women's Day on Saturday, and now it's back to normal. They are waiting for International Women's Day 2026, and they are not going to do much during the season. So we amplify commitment to gender equality during the designated periods. That's where we see organizations and CEOs posting pictures with women in their organizations and making noise about that. But soon after the International Women's Day, soon after the International Women's Month, we reset to default and we don't see the manifestation of that. So again, we create an illusion of progress, because if you read all the reports that are out there around women empowerment in organizations, it's all positive. It's like we've made huge and massive progress. But now that the International Women's Day and Women's Month is coming to an end, it all subsides. So we then say these actions are more for public relations rather than the commitment to amplify this work. So the invitation is, let's embrace gender equality as an operational and strategic imperative, a bold shift from rhetoric to results. Then the last whisper is the gender ghettoization gambit, where we exclusively engage women in programs and initiatives focused on gender equality. Most programs in my country about women, they are all exclusively women programs. And you see very few men in those particular sessions. And what we create there is a gender ghetto, where women would then be saying, let's go, let's do it, segregating men. And this allows men to remain passive observers, perpetuating the status quo and hindering potential for collaborative action. So go to your five-star hotel, have your nice women's chat, but when you come back to the organization, when you come back to the system where you need to actually break the ceiling, you find a lot of hindrances there. So we need to embrace our synergistic effect and ensure that men are educated and they are part of women conversation. I'm happy one of the organizations that we are supporting here in Zimbabwe, they started what they say a tax-men curve, where men in that organization discuss how to work with women, how to support women, and how to amplify gender mainstreaming initiatives. Quickly, how do we solution this? What do we need to do in order to address these? And Dr. Makuku is going to share a full document that I wrote on this, explaining this in detail. Number one, we need the symphony of strategic integration. And what I'm saying here is we need orchestration of gender equality and equity into the very heart of the organization or system's purpose. Have we made gender mainstreaming, gender equity, and gender justice a key part of our strategic imperatives? Are our organizations really driven to push this agenda? In my country, there are a lot of gender champions, especially in the public sector. But most of those gender champions, they don't even understand what they do, what their role is. They just think they are there to raise and support women. But is that all that gender equality and gender mainstreaming is all about? So we need to ensure this whole conversation around gender equality and gender equity is a key part of our organization's strategic imperative. Then we need a compass of accountable advancement, a navigational tool that charts a course towards true gender equality. Do we really know what we mean by gender equality? How to, when we say we have achieved it, the milestones around that. Because there is so much focus on now placing add a woman and steer, put women in strategic positions, even if you don't pay them as much as men, and make amazing reports. Do we have a compass that shows us the path, a clearly defined compass that gives us the direction that we want to take? And we need, again, the wellspring of equitable resources. Do we have resources in our organizations, in our societies, and in our communities that really support gender mainstreaming? Do our organizations have sufficient budgets around amplifying gender issues? Or it's one of those things that's at the periphery. It's one of that conversation that we only talk about during this month and eventually dies down. How easy is it for people in our organizations and communities to get approvals around gender issues? You realize that in most cases, it's a torrid task to get that approval in our organizations. Minds and biases. And these are programs that should not only be exclusive to women, but should also bring men on board so that we counter that narrative. We transform minds, we transform biases and melt them away through fires of comprehensive gender equality training. So to what extent in our organizations and communities do we have these comprehensive programs cutting across all levels of society to manifest that value? We also need the ascent of collaborative leadership where we climb together to achieve that which we need to achieve. Not only leaving men behind or leaving women behind, but let's collaboratively climb and raise our voices around these issues. We need a mosaic of transcendent norms, which is a vibrant tapestry where diverse gender expressions are celebrated and empowered. Is it only enough for us to sit during the International Women's Month and have conversations around gender? Or we need really that mosaic of putting us all together, deliberate meaningfully and generatively around these issues at organizational level, at societal level, and at national level, so that we get a clear path of where we want to go. We need an alliance coming together of a shared destiny, bonds where men and women unite in the pursuit of a common goal. We still have a long way to go around creating this alliance at organizational level, at societal level, even at national level. We have worrying statistics across the globe around divorce rates and gender-based violence in our communities and societies. And these are issues, fundamental issues that we need to pay attention to because they are tearing up the social fabric around how we can actually move forward and accelerate action in this way. So what does it take to create these alliances and these strong bonds? We need the illumination of data insight. Our gender disaggregated data should actually illuminate where we are at without this sugar coating, without this scramble for significance and for relevance to say we are also doing gender issues. This is what we see in a lot of organizations. And from the start of the month, every organization, there was a scramble for significance, a scramble for relevance. Everyone wants to say, we are doing something. We have this program. We have brought our women together. But is this realistic? Is it really showing what is happening on the ground? And we need the manifestation that comes with data illuminating the path forward. We need a nexus of collective flourishing, diverse stakeholders coming together, partnerships that really create fertile ground for gender equality to thrive. And this is easier said than done. And we need an evergreen commitment of sustained transformation, where we continually put resources around this particular issue so that we manifest the results that we want. Otherwise, we continue on the illusion of progress, when in actual fact, women are going through a lot in organizations. Yesterday, I had a webinar on professional trauma, and listening to the stories that women were sharing around professional trauma in organizations and societies, you realize that we still have a long way to go. And accelerate action is a noble cause, it's a noble call, an invitation for us to take bold action and engage in bold conversations around gender mainstreaming. I had to rush in the interest of time and allow me to stop here for now. So these are the whispers of deceit and the pillars for authentic equity. Thank you so much. Over to you, Doc.
Oh, thank you, Doc. We really appreciate you. It was a nice and highly informative presentation. So quickly, we want to say, let's have both presentations because yours is taking a global perspective and we seal it up with Madam Ajwa Kluvich's own, which is sort of a case study. And then we can open the floor. We hope we will continue to be with you, Dr. Justin,
Sure.
so that you can help us when it comes to comments and questions. Over to you, Madam Kluvice.
Thank you so much. I'm trying to share. I think.
Dr. Justin.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay. Now this is where the challenge comes, which is getting. Fantastic.
We welcome, yes, all those who joined us later. It's a very wonderful and exciting event that we are having.
Okay. Can you see my screen?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay, I can see it. I don't know why you can't. This is the challenge.
Did you share?
I did.
Okay.
If you can share from your side, that might be easier.
Okay.
While you do that, let me introduce myself.
Yes, yes.
One of my colleagues said that she saw the description that went with my name and found it very interesting. It's years of work. I started work many years ago in academia. I am by training a clinical psychologist, but quickly moved into academia. From academia, I moved into working with women fleeing domestic violence. Then I moved from there into local authority work, trying to change the systems so that women who were fleeing domestic violence could actually get the services and the support they need. I moved from there into working with social services, working as a women's rights activist. I became head of equalities not long after, and ended my work in local authority, working with children who were leaving the care system and children who were unfortunately involved with the criminal justice system. sometimes there was quite a big overlap between our children who had been taken into the foster system and their actions later on leading them into problems with conflict with the law. I had been supporting an African-led women's NGO all the while as a volunteer. And I then moved into working for them full-time. And that changed my direction completely. And I spent the rest of my working life working in the development sector, specifically in the women's sector. I found a lot of Dr. Justin's comments very interesting, and we will touch on some of them as I go on.
Yes,
if you can...
we can see your slides now. You can continue.
Fantastic. Okay. So one of the things I want to talk about, which Dr. Justin talked about, was those myths. And I just want to share with you an experience I had on the 7th of January this year. And it touches directly on something he said. I was at the airport. That was the day that Ghana was swearing in her first female vice president. My excitement was extreme. I was bouncing all over the airport, so excited. And I was talking to a young woman, and a young man came up to me and said, "But you know, you women, you don't support other women," which is one of the whispers. Well, it's not a whisper. That's actually quite a loud shout we hear in relation to what women do. At which point, both the young woman I was talking to and myself turned on him, and we had a very vigorous, shall I phrase it that way, discussion about that myth that women do not support other women. It is a myth that has been drummed into the media. You find it in plays, you find it in films, you find everywhere you look, there's an assumption that women do not support other women, and that is not true. And I want to prove it by discussing what my organization and the organizations I've been working with in the past have been doing. And Dr. Justin, we are working so hard and we are going to make a change. But it is not the change at only the organizational level. We cannot make a change unless we actually change it at the grassroots level. So let me talk to you about Tuwezeshe Akina Dada. Now, Tuwezeshe Akina Dada is a bespoke leadership program which addresses a lot of the issues Dr. Justin talked about. It's a Swahili phrase. Those of us who are West Africans, we have taken it on, which means empowering our sisters. And okay, next screen, please, because it looks like the control is held by you.
No. Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Yeah. Now, Tuwezeshe Akina Dada is a bespoke feminist leadership. Okay. Shall we start again?
Yes, let me share.
Okay. While you are sharing, I'll carry on talking. It's a feminist leadership program that addresses some of the things that Dr. Justin was talking about. The idea was conceived by an organization called Forward that I used to work with. Forward is the Foundation for Women's Health, Research and Development. It's an African women's-led organization, and it focuses on ending violence against women, African women and girls. It was set up in the UK, and its initial work was campaigning to end female genital mutilation, forced and child marriage. Next slide, please. There we go. We've tried and tested the Tuwezeshe model in Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Somaliland, Sierra Leone, Gambia, Ghana, England, Scotland, and Wales, and in various European countries. Next slide, please. And one of the things that we've learned over the years because Forward has been building this program over a long period, and it has elements that will address the issues that Dr. Justin talked about. It's a specifically developed residential training course, because one of the pillars, no, you have gone too fast. Come back. It's a specifically developed leadership training course that aims to, thank you, and it's got built on these 5 pillars. The first one is that it builds knowledge, skills, as well as the self-confidence to make these young women leaders and to become change agents against violence against women and girls. The second pillar of Tuizishi, which we are very proud of, is we give the young women a grant to enable the women after the training to undertake community social action projects to address violence against women and girls. So the theory they have picked up in the training, we ensure that they go to put it into practice in their communities. It is not in the organizations necessarily, but at the grassroots level, which is very critical for making change. In addition to that, there's a minimum 6 month to 1 year mentorship and support program. So these Tuizishi fellows who have done the training are allocated a mentor who will not only help them finish their social action project, but will mentor the young women from a feminist perspective. It's very important. This is not the usual business model of mentorship, which is top-down and very oppressive. It is done in a feminist methodology that enables both the fellow and the mentor to acknowledge their sisterhood. The next pillar, which again we'll talk about, is building the sisterhood that lasts beyond the program. And that has come about because we recognize that if you send young women on a training course and then they are alone, and you send them back into their communities where they alone are trying to battle those systemic obstacles, they will soon be beaten down. But the sisterhood, the Tuizishi sisterhood, which will hold and they will support each other beyond the training and beyond the period of time that they are doing their social action project, ensures that they're able to build that resilience to carry on making the changes they want to see. And the final pillar, which is critical for any person who is going to try to become a change agent, anybody who wants to be a leader, is self-care. All too often as activists, as women leaders, we are busy giving, we are busy working, we are busy battling all these whispers of deceit and illusions and so on and so forth, that we fail to take care of ourselves, which means that we are not able to sustain the length of time that we need to make those changes. So you can see that the 5 pillars of Tuizishi that we are talking about actually challenge a lot of the issues that Dr. Justin talked about. Next slide, please. Are we stuck? Okay. So as of 2020, which is the last date for which I have a lot of information, over 400 young women had attended the Bespoke Leadership and Empowerment Training course. Of those 400, nearly half had completed their social action projects. They had reached, through their social action projects, over 1,000 professionals. And we're talking about teachers, social workers, health professionals, and so on. Their trainings and their learnings they had got from the Tuizishi training, they had cascaded to over 2,300 others, and over 10,000 community members had been reached in Uganda, Tanzania, Somaliland, England, Scotland, and Wales. And that's just the first cohort. Next slide, please. Now, we made sure, because one of the things that we talk about is you are implementing a program, you don't necessarily know the impact of that program. But we invested a lot in doing monitoring and evaluation. And although we don't have a lot of time, we looked at several key elements: confidence in engaging in activities in their community, confidence in understanding the social norms reinforcing gender-based violence, confidence in them claiming their human and civil rights, confidence in public speaking, and confidence in designing and implementing a social action project. With the pre and the post training, which happened almost 3 years after they had finished their social action project, you can see that there were all significant improvements. The difference was never negative. It went from 53, which is confidence in designing a social action project. That difference was very significant, which is important for accelerating action. Because if they are confident to be able to implement a project, they will be able to take leadership roles in other spaces. Next slide, please. And we've got a few quotes from some of the fellows. They talked about their confidence. They talked about the way even they walked and their ability to engage with anybody on the issues, even volunteering for leadership roles, and being confident in their uniqueness as Black women, being able to stand in solidarity. We had the best, I suppose, compliment was a young lady from Uganda who said this was the best ever training she had ever received in her entire career. We have so many of these. Next slide, please. And you can see this are some of the young women from that cohort. After the training, they were able to take up spaces and actually take action, accelerate action in European Development Days. Those were huge meetings that brought together all of Europe to share best practice in terms of development. Next slide, please. We even had some of them attend the CPD 25 in Nairobi. Those are two of our fellows who were actually at the CPD summit in Nairobi. Next slide, please. And I just want to share some of the success stories. 3 have gone into politics at different levels. Fellows are supporting the rights of women who are working as sex workers, their right to be free from violence, even though they are working as sex workers. Fellows have established networks mentoring other young women. Some have taught self-defense. Others are dealing with period poverty. Several fellows have established spin-off NGOs of their own. So we have a young woman called Lucy who is working with rural farmers using what she learned and the money we gave her for the social action project to be working with women farmers in rural Uganda. Fellows have targeted boys, working with them to divert abuse before it happens, to change that mindset that women are second-class citizens, we are there to serve. Fellows have produced movies, videos, written radio dramas, and acted in dramas to challenge all forms of violence against women and girls. They have challenged duty bearers. Some of our fellows actually challenged sex for grades in Uganda, changing the way the universities are responding to that form of sexual harassment and abuse. A lot of research has been conducted. Fellows have researched the issue of violence against women and the cost of that. They've conducted research on female genital mutilation, comprehensive sexuality education, femicide in the Caribbean, worked with and in schools. So we are getting to reach out to the younger generations Next slide, please. One of the ones I really want to share with you is our young women in Somaliland. So for those of you who may be aware, Somaliland has a female genital mutilation prevalence of nearly 98%. The 21 young women we worked with in Somaliland, every single one of them undertook a project to talk about female genital mutilation in a country where female genital mutilation is haram. It is not spoken of. It is taken as a gender norm. These 21 amazing social change activists were able to talk to fathers, grandmothers, mothers, health professionals, all demystifying that myth around that particular form of violence. We've conducted research, all sorts of research all over Europe. And what has happened is some fellows, after doing their first social action project, have expanded their SAPs into something that we call the Tuwezeshe Challenge. So one of our young women's social action project was talking to young women about sexual and reproductive health. But in the course of doing her first social action project, she realized that in the UK, there was no real representation of Black young girls and menstrual hygiene and issues around periods. So she came back, and her Tuwezeshe Challenge project was to produce a book that featured Black young women going through their first menarche. And that book we helped her produce, and that book has now been published. The Gambian fellows actually produced an anti-FGM song, which was very critical in changing the push to reintroduce and re-legitimize female genital mutilation in the Gambia. And that was, 2 or 3 years ago, and so much more. So the reality of it is, although you may think it is small, the impact they are making at the grassroots is phenomenal, and we need to acknowledge that. We can't go on without talking about the mentorship of older women. Women do support other women. That is a myth. We have had over 100 Tuwezeshe mentors, like I said, but it cannot be a top-down traditional business model mentorship. Those mentors have to be trained and supported to be committed to building young women within a feminist lens, a non-directive lens, acknowledging the impact of patriarchy on both of them, and a commitment to gender equality. Next slide, please. Now, I want to talk about the last cohort of fellows. We've just trained the last cohort of fellows in Tamale, in northern Ghana, those of you who know West Africa. We finished the training on the 17th of July, and we have yet another cohort of 21 phenomenal young women who are about to start implementing their social action projects in the northern part of the country. And we will see them making a change, and we will see them accelerating action to end gender-based violence, to increase the numbers of women in leadership, and to making a sustained change that will ensure that we are able to accelerate action to gender equality. So in conclusion, we know that there's a positive influence on the women who go through it. It is evidenced. But we also know that if we want to see a change in the social norms that perpetuate violence, that exclude independent thinking women from political spaces, that pit women against women instead of encouraging working in sisterhood, then we all need Tuwezeshe Akina Dada. Next step, please. Thank you. You're mute.
Wow, thank you very much. Honestly, this is another yet exciting presentation with practical examples that we can learn from. Um, uh, could you also stop sharing? I think it's you. So now what we are going to do is to have an opportunity. Dr. Justin is here. Madam Kluvice is here. Let's hear. The floor is open. We want to hear your comments. We want to also hear the questions that are coming from you. But I think there's also one important thing we need to do before we open the floor. We have Madam Eva Joy Wynne, who passed away on the 9th of March. Again, she worked with Action Aid. I think she also worked with Madam Kluvice and a lot of people around the globe. So maybe we can just observe a moment of silence and then we can continue. Thank you very much. May so rest in peace. And she has worked throughout her life for the cause of women. And she has done a lot within her lifetime. She died at 60. May her dear soul rest in peace. Once again, I want to commend our guest speakers. And there's something which is unique, which Madam Kluvice and Dr. Justin said that we can't do it alone without men. It goes either way. Men also cannot resolve their issues without us. So we should be complementary rather than be in competition in order for us to resolve our issues, which can enable us to make the world a better place to live. This is the reason why you saw that we picked on Dr. Justin and we picked on Madam Kluvice, a male and a female, because I know and I've always acknowledged the fact that where we have female challenges, male challenges, all hands on deck, we can resolve the issues. Please allow me also to acknowledge the presence of Madam Desi Molefi. Her husband is a former minister several times in Botswana, and also she's a founder of a university in Botswana. But she's one woman who has also been very strong and firm. But fortunately, the husband has always been supportive of her work. We wish to see much more of that. Ladies and gentlemen, the floor is open. Please, whether it's a comment or a question, our guest speakers are on. You can unmute yourself and say something. Let's go ahead. Unmute. Yes, anybody? Welcome, Madam Gloria. You tell us. Say Ibrahim, tell us. Dr. Cynthia Bannerman, you are in the medical field. What do you meet there? We want to hear your stories. Kekeli, Engineer Mohammed, Akua, Conlan, please, Sir John Crawford, the floor is open. Dr. Joyce Okayo and also Madam Desi, please, you can come in. Yes, can you unmute yourself, Madam Kekeli? You can,
Hello,
yes.
hi everyone.
Thank you, hello.
Hello, thank you very much for the very interesting presentations. I was struck by the first presentation and a little bit like Madame Kluvice said, there's some of the myth about women not supporting women, or that sense that the onus is on women to do better. So I was wondering, if there are, what are the examples of men mobilizing other men for gender equity? Because there's a lot of action targeted toward women, but it has been said that working with women alone is not enough. So what I would love to hear is, yes, men working with men, because as it's been said, they also have a role to play. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will give a quick one and give back to our guest speakers. In South Africa, there's a group of men, they wear black, and they are advancing the cause of stopping the killing of women and children. In South Africa, even today, if you have a boyfriend and you say, I'm no longer interested, he can kill you for that. And so there's this big movement. It's growing into a big movement. And annually, they organize huge events in support of women. Over to you, our guest speakers.
Thank you, Dr. Makuku. As you were raising that question, I thought of the president of Sierra Leone, His Excellency Julius Maada Bio. I think he's confirmed as one of the he for she champions in Africa. Is really evident of the work that he is doing, him and his wife, in terms of gender mainstreaming. So at that highest level, personally, someone who I'm really following up. And only last week I wrote a message to his office to really get in conversation, because he's doing amazing work in that particular space. In Nigeria, a colleague running the African Women in Leadership Organization, though it's more centered on women, but he's really establishing a lot of he for she champions around that particular narrative. And we still have very few men, but I can say the few that are currently there are really in there with their heart to really manifest change and transformation. And with a lot of effort on it, we'll achieve much. But there are men who are doing that. And for me, it's President Julius Maada Bio in Sierra Leone.
Oh, wonderful. We didn't know about that one. Madam Kluvice?
I think, like Kikeli, it's a real issue. And I think we need to be honest, where we are looking at changing power structures. Is it Audre Lorde who wrote the book that you cannot dismantle the master's house using his tools? It will not be easy for men to give up power. Power is very comfortable, and the status quo, if it benefits you, you will not be very willing to give it up. So it's going to be something that we recognize will take some time. I know that some of the organizations in the UK, in fact, the organization I used to work for, did do some work with male champions in the fight against female genital mutilation. It is about sustaining it. And like Kelly, I think men have to lead those organizations. But it's difficult, but it's worthwhile.
Thank you very much for the input. I also remembered it must be again in Sierra Leone, where one morning a gentleman woke up and put the baby on the bed. And that gentleman said to men, I forgot to draw that picture, but I will share sometime. Poor women, what crime have they committed that we say they are the ones who carry the pregnancy? They are the ones who feed and breastfeed the children, making sure they do everything around the family. Men, let's also help women. And sometimes people would say, oh, your wife did something to you, that's why you are just doing this womanish thing. But he championed the cause until it became a culture. I think it's in Sierra Leone. I will draw that presentation which I did in 2021 or so. And that gentleman, and men now saw it and took it as normal to take their babies, put them on their back, feed them with a cloth the way women normally do. So because it was another man who led other men to do it, that's why also the adoption was quick and easy, and nobody now raised an issue about it. Once again, I'll check which country, because you registered, we have your numbers and your email addresses. I can always send to you. Please, can we hear from you people who are also in these workplaces? What are the issues? Thank you. Madam Desi, do you want to come in, please? Tell us your experiences over the years of running that university. Madam Gloria Apple, and also the gentleman can come in before we close. Yes.
Thank you very much, Dr. Makuku. Let me first of all sincerely appreciate you and your team for having put this together, and also to appreciate our great guest speakers. It was very encouraging to hear one of the male folks really saying it as it is.
Yes.
And one can only say, really, we are beginning to have a positive journey somewhere. It will take time, but I think I really want to appreciate Dr. Chinoperekwe, the way, he really brought this matter very, very clearly. And also to agree with Dr. Akuvise around the issue of the need for us to change this narrative that women don't support each other. It has been said so many times in different fora that, the young people are, they tend to believe it. But I think it's up to us, the mature women, to really work around the clock and work hard to change that narrative. Because at times, even the men can actually take advantage of that, which is not necessarily always the case. Maybe just to share my concerns, Dr. Makuku, here in our country, we are seeing a lot of young people dying in the pretext of passion killing. It's called passion killing.
Oh, okay.
It's quite common. Somebody, the young girl would like to maybe separate with this young man, and then they just cannot stand. And most of the time, we find that these will be young women who are actually well achieved. They've, maybe either they're at university, or those are some of the things that we have been seeing. And Dr. Lucy, you spoke about the need to start at the grassroots. I couldn't agree more, because if we get these young people and young men, or as boys and girls, and they do not appreciate, the girl child, it will start right there in the village. These are the same people that are going to be at university, and you have to deal with it at that level, and to be too late. So I think initiatives that can impact at grassroots level are very, very crucial. Dr. Makuku asked me to share my experience. I found myself having to come on board, particularly, with beauty pageants. Would have a student who is doing so well, and they're also joining these beauty pageants and all that, and get people in the corporate world saying, we're going to sponsor you. And they go all the way to say, you're going to get this, maybe it's a trip to the US for a pageant, whatever it is. At the last minute, the conditions are put on the table, provided you do 1, 2, 3. And I have found myself, I recall this incident where a pastor's wife called me, from one of the towns, and said to me, just as a woman, can you just assist this young girl? Because everything was set. They're going to be, this company is going to buy a ticket for them. They're going to provide everything, the wardrobe, and at the last minute, they just said to her, the CO just said to her, but provided you sleep with me, otherwise you cannot get this, this assistance. We have to come on board. I had to ask a friend of mine who owned a boutique around 7 p.m. to open that boutique so that this girl could get something, for us to work around the clock for her wardrobe. And she was meant to travel the following day. So these are realities on the ground, because we have to sit with this girl, behind doors to say, you are more valuable than somebody who is married trying to use you. So those are the realities that we face. And I think we still have a long way to go, but most of these young people come on board. The young lady I'm talking about today, she's married, happily married. That is 6-7 years later. But you wonder how many have fallen, prey to such arrangements. I think I'll stop this far, Dr. Mgo. Thank you very much.
What a rich submission. Honestly, we have learned another dimension. Of course, it was so general when we started. We are now getting into the case studies. It is these case studies that some of us would also want to know and see how we can make follow-ups and so on. That's a revelation, a big one for that matter. Could we have a male making a submission, whether it can be, say, Ibrahim, Engineer Mohammed, say, Conlan, or say, John Crawford?
Hello.
Hello.
Good evening, Director.
Good evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to join this powerful teaching and learning. I have learned a lot. But personally, I have 3 observations in the area I find myself. That is, in terms of politics, I have realized that ladies, especially those married, are interested to join politics, but their husbands don't allow them. And the second issue is education. I've encountered so many married ladies. They have finished their first degree, they want to go and do masters, and their husbands are not in agreement for them to go. Why all this? And the last experience I've encountered is where I met a lady who is blind. And she has been able to, and her mother too is a blind woman. And she has been able to do her first degree. Now she's doing her national service. But according to her, the one who sponsored her was the auntie. And the auntie is also saying that now she cannot continue to take care of her. And she's also interested to continue with her masters. But now, where to get the funding to support her to do the masters? The lady completed Winneba education, and she's now doing her national service in Upper West region. So I realized that politics and education are serious issues that men in particular need to be educated. Because if you have a wife and you don't develop your wife, you don't know who should die first. If you, the man, should die first and leave your wife, how is she going to take care of the family, the children? So, but most men are sometimes, you see them being envy or jealous of their wives, such that they don't want them to be empowered in terms of education or in terms of finances and also politics. So I think there's a lot with this your training. If you can continue, it will help a lot and deliver so many ladies and women in the system. Thank you very much.
We are having extremely rich submissions which are practical oriented. And Madam Kluvice, I was looking at you and saying, we can't leave this lady not completing. And we can't do that. We need to do something. Please, Conlan, do you have our contact details?
For you, they have your contact details.
Oh, you should get hold of me after this session regarding the lady whom you talked about, who cannot find the fees to continue schooling. So, colleagues, this is highly enriching. And one of the things is that Men forget that sometimes they may not die, but they may be involved in an accident. They may fall sick to the extent that they can't fend for the family. So if you have an educated wife who has a good job, she can continue looking after the family. Can I please push on to Madam Ajoa and Dr. Justin before we close? I don't know if I've closed on somebody who also wanted to say something, but I would have wanted Dr. Joyce Okayo to say something about your position as a Quality Assurance Director. How is it in a large university? Dr. Joyce? Okay, maybe she's not. Can we? Okay, Dr. Joyce, can we continue with the two of you, Dr. Justin and Madam Klovici? Hey, the submissions are rich.
Thank you.
Uh,
I like the last comment, and we've learned of our program that men gets intimidated by a woman on the rise. The woman you stay with, when she starts rising, men get so much intimidated. And in our programming, when we meet men, we have a conversation around how do you handle a woman on the rise. And it's one program that we are facilitating. And also encouraging women in terms of how do you get your spousal support. So the issue of spousal support is one of the key pillars of our programs, because this is a real issue around women. Most women are stay at home. Most women, they end up with managerial and supervisory roles because they are trying to protect their marriages and safeguard their marriages. And that's the reason why most women, again, they stay at managerial and supervisory role, because they don't want the pressure that comes with executive roles. And they say, how will I manage my house? The issue of work and life balance or integration then comes to play. And the men are not supportive of that. So that's another cultural collision that women face, and where we really need to educate my fellow brothers around handling a woman on the rise and being a supportive man when a woman is really advancing their career. We still have a long way to go, but we have quite amazing examples of men who have really supported their wives, their spouses, and eventually things are working out. But it's a topical issue that needs attention.
Yes, it tells us, thank you for your submission, Doc, that we really need to do a series of these webinars. But I want to congratulate Madam Desi, because the husband, being a former minister at that time, when she was also running the university, I don't know, he was so supportive of the present day. They are not a young couple, by the way. They've been married for more than 30 years. But honestly, they've pulled through, the husband in politics, she running the university. But we say congratulations to you, because I think it takes two to tango, and therefore their levels of tolerance are a good example. Madam Kluvice.
let me pull this back a little bit. I want to talk about the strap line, accelerating action. That is linked to the SDGs.
Yes.
In the sense of we set ourselves these global aspirations back in the 2000s and 2015s. And the demand, the strap line, I have to say, when I heard the strap line at first, my initial reaction was like, this is a PR stunt. What does it mean, accelerate action? But on reflection, I think it was quite a good PR coup, to use that phrase. It is a call to action. It is a plea. It is a demand. It provides situational context. It holds individuals, organizations, and governments to account. But I think we need to be perhaps a little bit, let me own it. I am a bit pessimistic about this call. We know that we are not achieving the SDGs. Only 17% of the targets are likely to be reached. We know that with COVID, climate change, conflicts, it makes it even more unlikely that we will achieve those targets. And of course, with what is happening with the dismantlement of USAID, even if they are able to win their court case and get back to work, the break is going to definitely dismantle and slow down the support. And of course, what has happened since then with France, Germany, Netherlands, and the UK all diverting money from support to overseas development. The UK is, I think, 6 billion into the defense budget from overseas development budget. For me as an activist, for me as a feminist, for me as somebody who's committed to women's and gender equality, I actually think we are not going to make those targets. But that shouldn't stop us from striving as Africa. We have been put in a different position now. We need to now pivot very quickly. In terms of our youth bulge, we cannot afford to be slow. We have to move very quickly and fight for gender equality, gender equity, and to achieve those SDGs that we can achieve. So for me, I think we need to very quickly come up with a strategy that takes the current situation into account. And I think that is something we need to push on very quickly. And I am a bit down at the moment about it, but I think if we organize and don't agonize, we need to organize and make sure that we are pushing as hard and as fast as we can within our countries, within our communities, to give our people the kind of nations we want to see.
Thank you very much to our guest speakers, to the delegates. I think by the time you go on to the Facebook, the numbers will rise. We will have more than 300 people watching us and our contributions. I wish to have us reconvening with other subtopics, and we continue to give each other tasks. Today, it could be Madam Desi and somebody else also presenting. Because it's that in my country, we say a teaspoon, the end of the day, when you take a teaspoon of sugar, the sack of sugar will be finished. So the same way, that teaspoon which we are taking now to put in the sack of sugar, it will fill the sugar sack. So let's continue with the conversation. We hope to come and engage some of you so that we can continue with the series continuously, not only in 2025. And sometimes we may be able to organize a physical presence event, maybe in Botswana or so. It pained me, this passion love thing, which Madam Desi talked about. How can we lose lives just because these things are happening? So, ladies and gentlemen, in the interest of time, we really want to appreciate you and thank you for coming on board. As long as people knew that we would be streaming on Facebook, we are not this few. Some people are on Facebook and they are commenting and they are following us. Thank you very much. Till we meet again, it's a bye-bye to you all. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Our presenters, guest speakers, we thank you again.
Oh, our
Madam
pleasure.
Desi. Oh, Yes.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye, all of you. All of you. Thank you.